Hello BeeBusinessBee fans, and I'm here today to talk to you about the topic of administration. You can't be anywhere if you haven't seen the news and they talk about the word administration. HMV was in administration recently. However, what does it actually mean? If you don't know the answer to that, keep watching this video and I'll explain as simply as I usually do when it comes to a BeeBusinessBee vlog. Firstly, let's take a look at what do we mean by the term administration. Well, administration is when a company is unable to pay its debts. Effectively, the company becomes insolvent. And that is all that word means. So when you see the word insolvent, it means it's unable to pay its debts. Now, to go into administration, you need to appoint administrators. And the way that's done is by the court. So the court will then, once appointed the administrators, give the company some breathing space. Some time effectively to avoid any legal consequences that would have come as a result of not paying those debts. So it gives the administrators the ability to trade the company for a period of time while they look to try and sell the company. Now, you might be thinking this sounds really, really good, so why doesn't every company that's got debts go into administration? Well, it's not as simple as that. Now, without making this too technical, because I want to keep this really simple for a BeeBusinessBee video, administrators have to get the permission of the people who've got secured assets or debentures. So long-term loans, or they have what's called a charge. So they own potentially a heavy asset which the company owns. So it could be like a building, for example, or an expensive piece of machinery. If they've got charges against that land, then they have to get their permission to go into administration. Now, they tend to get that permission because most lenders think that their best chance to get the most money back for their debts is to keep the company trading. Because remember, when you sell assets second-hand, you only get the second-hand price for those assets. So you're probably thinking now, I understand administration. I understand that it's this process that protects a company from getting into debt and it enables it to trade effectively. But how does administration work? How long does it last for? Well, the honest answer to that is it can last as long or as short as period as the administrator takes. So in some cases, and you probably hear it in the news, they have really quick administrations called pre-pack administration. Pre-pack administration is basically when the company, which is in administration, is then sold to another company, maybe a third party or maybe a new company that's been set up. And the purpose of this new company is to buy the assets they want from this company, and then the administrator then will liquidate, and that means close down the old part of the business that nobody wants. So effectively, they sold the best parts of the business over, and then they disposed of all those liabilities they didn't want as part of the business. That tends to happen, and it's a pre-pack administration. Much more complex in real life, and it sounds too good to be true, but it is actually a question that morally is being debated in the world of business, because there are people in there that don't agree with the idea of pre-pack administration, to disposing of the debts to the people who you don't want to pay effectively, but still being able to trade the company under a new name. Perfectly legal, and that's called a pre-pack administration. You could find that the administrator decides that they're going to try and open out the bidding process, and they offer anybody who's interested to make a bid for the company that's in administration, and people will lodge their bids. And what you may find is the administrator doesn't get a bid that somebody wants to take over all of the company that's in administration. They may only want part of it. They may want some of the assets. For example, let's imagine a shop. They maybe don't want every single shop. They just want the best performing shops. So they'll only buy, if let's say you had 100 shops, they'll only buy 50 of those shops. So they might have made a bid for 50 of them and not 100. Now, the administrator clearly would like to sell the company as a whole process. So they will still look to see if they can get everything sold. But they may have to accept that they can't. And if they can't, the administrator will sell it what's called piecemeal. So they'll sell it bit by bit. So they might sell off those 50 shops to somebody. But then maybe somebody else offered more money for the brand name. So they'll sell the brand name to somebody else. Maybe somebody's offered more money for the actual fixed assets like the building. So they'd sell that to somebody else, and so on, until effectively they're left with the bits that they can't sell, and then that company is liquidated. Now what you'll notice there is that at this point here, some of the company's still trading, but not all of it, and that's a piecemeal process. But again, that probably offers the best value to the creditors because they've sold some of the company. Now the final option, and effectively the more preferred option, is they would like to sell it as a whole. Ideally, they would like to sell the whole process, the whole company, as one. So they invite those bids. Somebody will make a bid to try and buy the whole company. And when they sell it, that's it. They return the best value they can. Now, it is in the administrator's duty and interest to get the highest price and the best value. But they do actually have to show a duty of care to ensure that whoever they sell to can continue to trade. Because remember, people are going to be expected to get paid their debts back. Maybe at a lesser amount, but they expect the administration process to mean they get some money back. If they don't get that money back, then the administrator hasn't done their job properly. The worst thing that can happen is for a company that's been into administration to go back into administration. So that's how it tends to work. There is a final option, and that is something called liquidation. Now, liquidation is different to administration because in administration, the administrator is trying to sell the business as a going concern. What that actually means in English, and nice and simple English, is trying to sell it as a business which is trading but has got some issues. Whereas when they liquidate the company, they are effectively saying this company cannot trade. It is in such a serious way, it can't continue to trading. It's not a case of poor management. It's not a case of the way that the company is structured. There is something fundamentally wrong, or the way that it owes the money. For example, it maybe owes too much money. The way that it's structured or the way that it's got its debts mean it cannot be sold as a going concern. If it can't be sold as a going concern, it has to be liquidated. Liquidation is when you sell off each of the assets piece by piece. But what you try and do there, of course, is get the best value for it because that's their duty to get the highest price. But ultimately, you are not continuing to trade the company. Everybody will try and avoid liquidation because assets on their own, when sold second-hand, don't fetch as much money as when they're sold as part of an administration process, typically for a business that can carry on trading in the future. And that is how administration works. I'm hoping you understand administration a little bit more. I've tried to break it down and tried to keep this simple. I'm not going to try and pretend that it is as simple as that in real life. There is a little bit more to this process. However, as with all BeeBusinessBee videos, I try and keep the process and the concept as simple as possible. In a future video, I'm going to look at the topic of a CVA, because CVAs are linked to this process and they can be used before we even reach the administration point. So what I'll ask you to do is make sure if you've enjoyed the video, go down and press the like button for me. Try and follow me on my social media platforms. You can see down here on the bottom down here. Give them a follow for me. And remember, until next time, ensure that you keep buzzing.